Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Marketing Mischief and Mayhem. My name is Russell Quinnen. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer of Theory SF. In San Francisco, we're a creative and strategic brand marketing agency for technology firms. And we've been hosting this podcast to start these great conversations with CMOs and experienced marketers to show us what's really happening right now in the trenches of B2B tech. So I'm super pleased with our today's guest because first off, she said yes. And secondly, just an incredible marketer. So today's guest has done what few mortals dare attempt. She's merged 4 SaaS companies without causing a single marketing automation platform to explode that we know of. She's wrangled Martech stacks, reprogrammed BDR teams, and deployed AI agents that, let's be honest, probably deserve 401ks by now. She's led global campaigns at Adobe, scaled IPO-bound rocket ships at Confluent, and once helped relocate 23 cats to the Philippines.
That's right.
Yes, you heard that right. 23 cats to the Philippines. Currently CMO at Simpro, Rachael Truair is part performance marketer, part improv comic, part AI whisperer, and full-time badass. She's here to talk about the wild world of B2B creativity, why marketing ops is secretly the sexiest job in SaaS, and what happens when you mix ABM with a little anarchy. Please welcome to Marketing Mischief and Mayhem, the woman who makes marketing efficiency sound like a Vegas magic trick, Rachael Truair.
Wow, what an introduction.
How about that?
I think we're done. We're done here. It's over.
We're done, right? Right? Awesome. Well, we're going to go ahead and jump right in, as we always do, Rachael. You've led marketing for IPO rocket ships and private equity war machines. What's more fun, building brand equity or EBITDA?
Wow, well, first of all, thanks for having me. Thanks for the kind introduction. And does anyone actually get to build brand equity anymore? That's one thing I'm wondering about.
That's what I'm searching. I'm searching.
I will say that I actually do like building EBITDA because I'm all about rational actors, and you can't argue with EBITDA sometimes. If it's either working or it's not, and I think it's fun when you can do both at the same time between building a brand and showing bottom line results. So I think it all starts with EBITDA and making sure you're staying within the swim lanes of what you need to do to be a healthy business. And healthy might mean different things at different companies and different stages of investment and growth. But either way, you can't have one without the other. So I'm going to lean a little bit more toward EBITDA on this one, but I do enjoy a good brand equity conversation.
Well, that brings up an interesting point. I argue that we have to create a brand first because I believe you need to make deposits into your ATM machine before you can start making performance marketing withdrawals. How have you navigated around with all these companies you've been so fortunate to work with? How do you discuss building brand equity when we know that the board and VC and private equity are all looking for your KPIs next month? How do you address that?
You've got to bring it back to the numbers. So I'll give you a great example. If you're talking specifically performance marketing, you can look at brand versus non-brand search. And anyone that has ever looked at the cost of a non-brand search versus a brand search knows that brand search is actually one of your most efficient paid search motions. And if you can tie in brand equity or brand investments to growth in the demand for brand search, you can actually start to tie together the story around, hey, we go spend some money over here on our brand. We can actually increase the volume of search happening for our brand, and we're not having to pay 2, 3, 4x, sometimes 200x on non-brand search. Instead, we can go gobble up all of these more efficient paid brand searches. And so you've really got to be able to talk the language of the board and help bring them along on that story. It's not easy to do, especially without data, but you can really, if you tie those things together, you can get there with them.
That's the first time I've heard somebody say that so far, and I really appreciated that answer.
Thank you.
No, that's wonderful. And we really do. And I'm hoping the pendulum does swing back to building brand and tech and away from performance. I feel everybody's in the performance bucket right now.
Yeah.
And to me, at a certain point, everybody's kind of fishing out the same fish. There's not a lot there left, and we're all just kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel. And I think the smartest strategy is to zig when everybody else is zagging, and everybody right now is in performance. And hopefully we see the pendulum swing back into building brand shortly.
Yeah. I would add that, there's a lot of work with private equity firms going on around brand identity. And one of the things that when companies are acquired, they often have is some element of brand equity or brand identity already established. And I have not seen it done very well in the PE world, where the brand is either absorbed or rebranded into the larger parent company, because people don't want to have a house of brands. And I think that that's actually often a big challenge for private equity, is they assume that that brand doesn't have any equity and that it can just go away. And what you find is people are at these trade shows and conferences going, hey, what happened to this booth I used to always visit? Where'd it go? It was red and purple, and now there's this orange one over here, and it's a totally different name. And so if you're going to make those moves, you've got to be really aware that you still have to make that investment. Back to your point about deposits and investments, you've got to be able to invest in building that new brand, because you've just really eradicated all of the brand equity that PE firm bought in acquiring that company. And so that's a really delicate dance, and one that you really have to know what your goal is and what your runway is with the private equity firm to be able to make those changes.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So AI agents are officially on the payroll. What's been your biggest, robots are actually better at this moment in marketing?
I have a lot of digital twins. I'm basically just a physical representation of AI at this point, just speaking through me. I'd say the biggest one is we recently did a pilot on our chat on our website, where we saw that we had a 320% lift on meetings booked per month using AI agents on the chat. At the end of the day, AI agents don't go on lunch break. They don't put their statuses away. They're not going to sleep. Mm-hmm. People are going to websites at all hours of the day and night, and having someone that's present and able to help prospects and customers around the clock is invaluable. And we've seen that that's been actually a place where robots are generally better, is being able to monitor the chat.
Hey, let me ask you this. We were kicking tires with a AI avatar company where they're trying to personify the avatars, where you actually speak to a face speaking back at you, and there's a lot of research that says folks are going to be into that, especially if you come from the video gaming side, where we have such immersive environments that video gamers live in. Do you think there might be something creepy with that, though, if you're talking to a fake face that's just an AI behind the scenes, or is text okay with AI, or do you think it'd be great to put an avatar on the face?
We also looked at some avatar solutions, and we had the same question. I think it's very much persona-based, to your point about someone that's familiar with gaming. In my instance, I've been on some version of a chat since I was sitting on a computer in my parents' house when I was probably 10 or 11 years old. So talking on a chat to an AI agent doesn't really intimidate me, but I think it just depends on who your audience is, and understanding what they're comfortable with and what their reaction is going to be. I know that for us, we have quite a generally a business owner type persona that is focused on growing and scaling their business. And what we're seeing is that while we thought maybe they wouldn't be interested in AI because they're really focused on, the traditional kind of trades, businesses, and they've maybe not been as connected to the technology space, we're learning that because they want to grow their business and they're paying attention to the news and what's happening in the media, they're actually very much embracing the concept of AI. In fact, they're asking for it, they're expecting it. And so you sometimes also don't want to make assumptions about how people are not going to react. It's where you've really got to get down to testing and understand how it reacts with your particular audiences.
Right. At Simpro, you've fused multiple brands, tools, and cultures. If marketing integrations were a cocktail, what would you call that drink, and how strong is it?
Well, now I'm thirsty. I immediately see a Mai Tai, a little umbrella covered, tiki glass. So maybe I call it a marketing Mai Tai, because there's a lot of different things that go into it.
Yeah.
If you've ever made a Mai Tai, there's quite a mix of different flavors and tastes and liquors. And the success is sweet. When you make a really good Mai Tai, it's a strong drink, but it's also a sweet drink. And it's something you can repeat over and over again. You can have many of them, maybe to your own detriment.
Yes.
But I'm going to say it's a marketing Mai Tai.
I like it. That's actually a great answer. I love how you slipped the sweet in there. All right. You brought improv comedy into B2B marketing. Congratulations. That's
Thanks.
awesome. Be honest. Has yes and ever actually saved a deal?
So I did that at Magento, which was an e-commerce company. And Magento was really unique in that it had a very strong B2C e-commerce offering. But this was back, almost 10 years ago, where the B2B e-commerce space was really starting to open up. We called it the big dog of e-commerce due to its potential market size. It really dwarfed B2C e-commerce overall. And we had several cases where we had B2C clients that were wanting to start selling their products directly to businesses. So think of maybe a soda company, an unnamed soda company that also sells to consumers, but also wants to sell to large businesses to put in their stores, like a grocery store. And so in those cases, we were able to come at it from a yes and approach, where we said, hey, we can do B2C and we can also do B2B. And so we had a lot of instances where not only did it save a deal, but it also saved our customers, right? They didn't have to go out and do something else or hire a different e-commerce platform. They were able to use us for both. So that was really the magic of yes and I also think it had a lot of legs in the field marketing space because it was a fun way to tie in different events. We worked with Second City, the improv group out of Chicago that's been essentially building improv for businesses for years and years now. And it was really fun. We had a great time. I think our sales team enjoyed the events, our prospects enjoyed the events, and everyone learned something. It wasn't just about e-commerce. It was about how to have a more expansive thinking and a team approach. So it was a really fun campaign.
Well, I have to ask you, going to Second City, that's amazing. Like we've been exploring stuff with the Groundlings, some of those original improv groups. How did you sell through that idea? Again, that's kind of an unusual brand approach, right?
Yes.
How did you sell that through in a world where everybody's pinching every penny?
I had a really great CMO at the time. I was running America's marketing, who was, I would say, a brand CMO. She really cared about brand. She led with a brand mentality, and she actually had been talking about the idea of this. How do we talk to both B2C and B2B? And we kept talking about the power of and. And when I heard the power of I'd taken some improv classes and, I've always enjoyed the theory behind yes and, I thought, there might be something here. And it started off as could we buy a book and give it away? Or could we do a video or something? And ultimately we decided to do a kind of end-to-end fully integrated motion where we were going to run these events anyway. We're just going to do them in restaurants or bars or something like that. But instead we did them in comedy clubs, and we had the Second City troops come and perform an improv session. And then we had a panel of our prospects and customers talking about the challenges of e-commerce, the power of and then we had our partners there also talking about how they're seeing the world. And then at the end, everyone got to do an improv session with Second City. We raffled off a book for the best social post leading up to the event. So everyone that entered the event got a chance to win their yes and book. And it ended up being it was a real value add, I think, for anyone going to it, both our partners and our customers and prospects. It wasn't just a typical boring, round table type event. Yeah.
Exactly. I applaud you for doing something different.
Thank you.
Work.
Thanks.
So what's your secret sauce for making marketing feel less like a cost center and more like a growth engine when talking to a CFO with a furrowed brow?
Yeah, well, I actually love my CFOs that I work with. I think they're the archetype is not always what they actually are. They're like some of the more fun people when you really get to know them. But I think it goes back to some of what we were talking about earlier. It's really about shifting from reporting on activities to kind of reporting around impact. And CFOs, for example, they don't always know what it means to be an MQL or lead scoring or anything like that, but they definitely understand close won revenue. And so the more you can start to bring back your activity level to impact, the more they'll start to be comfortable with that conversation. I think the other thing I see sometimes marketers and marketing leaders struggle with when talking with CFOs is a lot of a CFO's role is around forecasting and predictability. And marketers aren't always as adept at forecasting as maybe a CRO who's really comfortable with giving the sales forecast and kind of seeing where things are going to land. Marketers are often reporting on what's happened, but they're not always able to say, here's what's about to happen or here's where we're going. So you really need to get comfortable with your ability to forecast where things are headed with your marketing plans. You have to understand that there's got to be some predictability to it, but it's also an art and science. You're not going to hit the exact forecast. So you've got to be comfortable with missing it or overachieving it some month, just really depending on what's going on. So the more you're able to kind of show up with that forecast, that really helps CFOs understand what they can budget for and plan for, because from their standpoint, there's tons of inputs and outputs going on around them that having a really clear forecast, or at least some sense of a forecast, gives them the ability to plan at the kind of enterprise level scale.
Off the cuff question here. So you're going into a board meeting, you're going to pitch that you want to do a pretty significant brand effort, maybe larger than they've done before. And obviously we have the numbers that we believe will cause this number of interactions that will lead, into the sales funnel and so forth, and achieve X kind of KPIs. Who do you need to know is on your side when you walk into that board meeting? Is there a minimum? Is it the CEO has to be on it and the CFO's got to want it? Or is everybody or one of them, none of them? Who do
everyone.
You have to have everyone? I think you have to have everyone?
Everyone's got to sign up for it in the C-suite, because most C-suites we're a system, right? My success is someone else's success, and their failure is my failure. And so a healthy C-suite. Mm-hmm. And so if you have a healthy C-suite, you're going to want to have the buy-in of the entire C-suite. Now, maybe not the whole C-suite's even going to comment in the board meeting on this or even get asked a question about it. My head of HR is probably not going to provide any details around this investment, but having their buy-in and having them know what's happening and where it's headed is really important, because I might be coming to her later and saying, hey, I need to hire someone to support this initiative, or hey, we need to up-level some talent here to support this initiative. And so I try to have my entire C-suite aligned on at least the high level. Why are we doing this? What is it going to cost? What's the outcome? Before I ever go to the board and have a conversation with them. As for when that happens, I know, often there's a pre-read that goes out, and you want to make sure you've spent some time thinking about not just your own point of view about what you're presenting, but what are they going to ask you? What are the questions that they often come back with, and try to at least have those addressed in the deck. And back to the point about EBITDA versus brand equity, the soft stuff, they don't really care about. They just want to see, where are the numbers, what are the inputs, what are the outputs, and what kind of confidence do you have? It's all about risk management. What kind of confidence and predictability do I have that this is actually going to pay off? And what's the timeline for that to pay off? And that could literally be one slide. As long as you know your details behind it, that could be one slide, and you say, we're going to do this. This is the output, and this is what we're investing in, and this is when I'll come back to you with an answer of how it's going. That's what they need to know, and that's often the only thing that they're going to ask about.
Mm-hmm. Do you think, because again, I want this podcast to be as useful as possible to other CMOs and VPs of marketing to make great marketing and advertising happen, right? Is that a situation where would you try to pre-sell each individually before like the board meeting? Do you think you would take the concepts to them and kind of get them warmed up to it before anybody's voting in a board meeting? Or would you just lay it all on the table fresh for everybody at the same time?
I think it depends on your board. I do think it helps to have some advocates in the room. Mm-hmm. And typically CMOs will know who those people are. So if you're meeting with them regularly, making sure that they're aware that, hey, this is going to come up and this is kind of where I'm at with it. And you may not need a true full hard sell, but if you've got their support, generally when you go into the board meeting, they're going to make sure to ask some questions that bring answers that you can defend, and they're going to make sure that you're put in a position to be successful. I think it really though depends on the size of the board, how the board functions, how much input you need from them to make certain decisions. Some boards want more input than others on certain decisions. It's one of those, I always use the analogy of, is it a tree trunk or is it a branch or is it a twig that you're talking about? If you're cutting a tree down at the trunk, like that's probably a board level conversation. If it's a branch, it could be, depending on the board. But if we're talking about, moving some thing on the home page or something. Like obviously we're not going to take that to the board. The other thing I'll mention with boards is back to data and metrics is having some level of testing that you've already done before you go and say we're going to do this big swing. If you can get to some level of testing or some data validation around, we did a third-party research on why we lost all these deals, and now here's what we're going to go fix with our brand to address that. Or we believe this phrase is really important in our messaging, and so we've tested it on our website here and there. We've seen an impact of X, Y, and Z, and now we're going to go put this into all of our out-of-home and all of our big brand swings. Like that will give them more confidence that what you're talking about is not going to be, it's really reducing the risk for them on that investment.
Okay, love it. All right, you've wrangled campaigns across Adobe, Confluent, and now field service SaaS. How do you stay creative in industries that, let's just say, don't really scream sexy?
I often toy with this because I am a creative person and I love to write, and I realize that most of my job is no one would look at it and say, wow, that looks like marketing, or even that looks like creativity. It's a lot of spreadsheets, it's a lot of phone calls, it's a lot of communication. But what I've realized when I think about why do I enjoy work, because I do enjoy my work, I didn't set out to do what I'm doing for a living, but I enjoy it, is that the creative part is actually the problem solving. So the more I've embraced problem solving, the more I've realized that the space or the industry doesn't really matter. The personas don't really matter to me. I enjoy the problem solving around how to achieve the results within that industry, within that space. That's the creative part for me. When someone says, why do we have a declining win rate in this region? And I go off with my team and we unwind that mystery, that requires a lot of creative thinking. And I enjoy that aspect of my job. So it doesn't bother me anymore to work in these industries or spaces where it's database infrastructure or field service management, because I recognize that there's creativity happening in my job in different ways.
For sure. So what's your favorite marketing bet that didn't look great on the spreadsheet, but made you a legend in the Slack channels?
This one I had to think about. I think this one wasn't my full idea, but this was a team effort that I embraced and pushed forward. So we had a concept that we were trying to promote our customers expanding with us, and we wanted them to sign up for more of our offerings. This was at Simpro. And in Australia and New Zealand, there's a thing where if you go on a break, like a coffee break, it's called a smoko. To all of us, we think like, what is this? Smoko? Like, is it like smoked meat? No, it's a coffee break. You have a coffee, you might smoke a cigarette, and it's just a little relaxing moment in the time. So we came up with this concept that if you filled out a form to inquire about one of our add-on products during a certain period of time, you would win a smoko on Simpro, and we would bring to your office, place of work, a coffee truck and a bunch of donuts or bagels or something. And one of the concepts around it was that while we were there, we would do a bunch of video. We, talk to different stakeholders. We take pictures. We do social promotions all around it. And honestly, it was not very well embraced by our internal sales and customer success teams initially, because they thought that it wouldn't really make people want to fill out this form, and if they wanted to buy a product they would, and why would we need to entice them? But our customers, they're often on a budget, they're looking for ways to incentivize their employees. So having this opportunity was actually quite exciting to them, and we had a ton of participation, and we ended up with doing 3 or 4 different smokos during this period at our different customer offices, and we got so much great content. And by the end of it, all the sales reps and the customer success teams were like, oh, it was so great and we sent them there, so they got to meet with their customers, and they're like, oh, it was so great to talk with Bob and learn about how they're using the product and ride along with them. And it was such good morale boosting for all of their employees to have us there, handing out coffees. And we had so much great content from it. We used that content for months and months on LinkedIn and all sorts of places. So it was not always the most exciting thing when we rolled it out. And in fact, it was quite frustrating when it wasn't very well received. But after the fact, they were like, when can we do the next smoko? So it kind of became a little bit of a joke in my marketing team, because we knew all along it was probably going to be a great, exciting, fun thing. And it was funny to hear people start asking for them for their customers. So that's my favorite one.
Did that turn into revenue for you guys? Did it achieve like?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. It was. We had several customers that expanded into additional products as part of that, and we were able to tie back. Oh, look at all these form fills that we had, and that actually people went and bought additional products from us. So absolutely, and not just the people that got the smokos, but the people that just submitted the forms during that time. So it was definitely a revenue generator for us.
Right on. Now, do you think that was successful because it was culturally relevant and localized?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So if you were to replicate that, you'd have to figure out what that meant everywhere else, right?
Correct. And we haven't yet. We've thought about it, but we realize that it's a very specific cultural motion that works very well in that region. And actually, we've continued to do them in that region, but it's not something that's as widely, adopted in the U.S. People just go on break whenever they feel like it. It's not kind of like a let's all go together and have this break. So it's harder to replicate, but it's a great example of something cultural that also, I think for them, they saw that we still are focused on their region. We're a local resource for them. We're not just these Americans that are marketing to them. So I think that was another nice aspect of it that kind of reinforced our Australian roots and heritage.
Right. That's awesome. Okay, with tools like 6 Sense, Mutiny, and Qualified in your arsenal, has Martech made us smarter marketers or just fancier stalkers?
Well, I think that, first of all, I've been stalking people on the internet myself personally for years. I didn't need all these tools to do that. But I will say, I think we're making us smarter because most of these tools are giving us really granular details and data around our progressive improvement, maybe at stalking, or I like to say targeting. And so, things like Mutiny, for example, the tests that we're able to run, the experiments we're able to run leveraging Mutiny, the personalization that we're able to test and see, does it actually work? Like if I know that you're, in California and I show a picture of, the state of California or a map of California on our webpage when you visit, like I've heard so many times people say, oh, personalization is so important, then you go run a test, and actually it doesn't matter. Like maybe in some cases it isn't important to you. You don't need a map of California. And so I think it's made us smarter because we're able to go back and actually have those conversations rather than just doing things off of intuition or people's opinions. We're able to say, hey, actually the map wasn't important. What was important was the message, or maybe the color blue on the button instead of yellow. Like there's all sorts of ways that we're able to leverage Mutiny specifically for testing that make us smarter marketers. And it really roots us in our knowledge versus, opinion-based conversations that when I look at marketing, even, 10 years ago, we weren't able to always get to that level of depth in our conversations. And it was kind of your opinion versus my opinion. And one of them may or may not work, but we have no idea how to figure that out. So I think we're smarter for sure.
Okay, good. What's your playbook for turning skeptical sales leaders into your biggest marketing hype squad?
Yeah, well, number one, don't point fingers. And I think that goes on both sides. You've got to be really careful about looking at your own business and your own house and making sure it's in order. And you can give, insights and you can give suggestions. But when I hear someone start to say that something's not working because of the other side or the other team, like that's always a red flag for me. And same on my side. I'm really careful not to say, oh, we didn't get to that number because of sales. I'll come up with like 800 other reasons. I'll come up with every little reason we were off before I'll say that. And sometimes, my board will be like, well, what about the sales number? And I'll be like, well, you can talk to the sales team about that. I'm giving you my view on where I see the marketing team being off. The other piece is, educate them about marketing. Marketing's changing a lot every day, as you know, and there's a lot that's overwhelming and intimidating about how marketing works. And it's a little bit of a black box if you aren't connected to it. And so I try to take opportunities to share insights about what my marketing team is doing, the experiments we're running. I send my leaders to their meetings to present on what they're working on. If I'm seeing that there's a certain area that I'm hearing a lot about, for example, recently it was SEO, Gen AI and SEO is a hot topic. making sure that they know that they're welcome to join us at our SEO QBRs that we have, where typically we're not inviting anyone outside of marketing. We're talking specifically about SEO performance and how are we going to improve it. But if that's an area that they're wanting to learn more about or understand more, I'm the first one to open the door to say, come join our meetings and listen. And we'll show you which parts of the baby are ugly, and some of the baby is cute. But I try to keep a very transparent approach, but also try to educate them about here's what we know and here's where things are headed. And then just be really careful about, keeping my house in order.
Okay, beautiful. So what advice would you give to a CMO inheriting a tech stack with more layers than a Texas 7-layer dip?
I mean, between the Mai Tai and the 7-layer dip, I feel like I'm ready for
party.
a little party here. But, I would hire someone who really likes systems integrations, a really sharp, smart person that loves Martech, and apply, have them look at how those systems work together or not in some cases, and where we're actually getting value from it, and what the cost and the ROI is on it. You can start to spend a lot of money on tech, rev tech very quickly and not really be getting that value, and no one's logging in and all sorts of stuff. So I like to have someone who owns that point of view and is constantly looking at how to make it better, how to make them work better together, how to, especially if you're integrating multiple companies, how to have consolidation of systems onto the same system where possible, so that you're not reporting out of 8 different databases or marketing automation tools. And then you over the time get better buying power and better opportunities with those those vendors as well when you have a little bit more of an integrated strategy. So I think bring in someone really strong to deal with that, because that's a full-time job right there.
Sure. As a CMO, how deep do you need to be in tech stack speak? I mean, you'll have somebody on your team who's responsible for that. How deep do you need to get into that as a CMO?
I get into it, I think, at the level in which it's either a financial decision. So if someone's asking for approval around, hey, we're going to have buy more licenses, or we're going to add more modules, or we're going to expand this to another business unit, one of our other brands, I will get involved in those conversations so that I understand, why are we doing it? Is it working today with the way we're using it? Typically, yes. When is it going to be done? And when will we start to derive value from it? So that's one area. I think the other area that I get involved in, sometimes more than I like to, is around how do we keep the scope creep from getting too big within the team? Because people are, especially with AI right now, people are constantly experimenting and testing out new AI tools in particular, which I think is great. So what I've done is I actually have two people that I have focused on really harnessing all the different AI tools, mapping them to kind of a marketing workflow, and understanding what are all the different tools that we are trialing, or that we've experimented with, or that we're buying, and how do those all work together? Because one thing I see with AI happening is it's like the early days of marketing cloud technologies, where there were 80 million of them, and then they started to really consolidate quite a few of them into platforms, and no one's really got the platform figured out. So we're in that phase of just kind of explosive AI tooling happening, and I want to make sure that we're not getting so many different tools and they're not to connect it all into a streamlined workflow, because then you're not going to get the force multiplier from AI that everyone's trying to get.
Right. Well, all right, Rachel, you've passed tier 1. Now we're going to tier 2. Tier 2 question, right. Lightning round. Yeah. Again, just the first thought that comes to your mind, straightforward. Question 1, what's more addictive, LinkedIn likes or Slack emojis?
All about the external validations. I got to go LinkedIn likes.
Okay. If your marketing tech stack were a reality show, what would it be called?
Keeping up with the KPIs.
You can ban one B2B marketing phrase forever. What's getting the axe?
Okay, I'm going to say this. You've said it, I think, maybe 2 to 3 times on this very podcast, the word sexy.
Okay. Mental note. What's your guilty pleasure PowerPoint move? The dramatic fade, the flying dollar sign, or the stock photo of a handshake?
A well-timed GIF.
Well-timed GIF. Okay. Worst marketing advice you've ever received, but kind of worked anyway?
Fake it till you make it.
Very good one. If AI takes over your job, what cool, weird job would you try next?
Working at a piano bar.
A piano bar? Do you play?
I do play the piano, although I would not probably be playing at the piano bar because I'm not good enough. I would really want to, that would be like my aspirational goal.
Okay.
But I would definitely like to be like a hostess or a bartender or someone that just works there and gets to listen to all the music and see all the bachelor and bachelorette parties come through.
Sounds like a good time. Which of your previous campaign names would also make a great indie band name?
Work smarter.
I thought you were going to say yes and.
You know, we already talked about that one, so I decided to go work smarter. I
Okay.
think it's got a little. I'm seeing like lumberjack vibes on the cover with like plaid and kind of gritty
Okay, I like it.
banjos. Yeah.
Dueling banjos, I love it. Who's the real boss in B2B marketing? The data dashboard or your gut?
I'm going to say dashboard rules all supreme.
Okay. Marketing superpower you wish you had, like seeing into the CFO's soul, translating sales objections telepathically. What do you got?
I got making beautiful slide decks quickly. I can make them beautiful or quick, but not both at the same time.
Good, fast, or cheap. All right. Lastly, if your career had a theme song, what would be playing as you walk into the boardroom? What's your walk-on music, Rachel?
Okay, it's a different one, but it is a boardroom. Get Along, a song by Kenny Chesney.
Can you hum it?
Yeah, it says get along while you can. Don't give love the upper hand. I don't know, but mostly it's just about we should all just get along.
Fair enough. Well, Rachel, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing all your knowledge. I've loved having you on the show, and I bet our viewers will love it too. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks so much, Russell. Have a great day.
You too.
All right.